And we are back. Nico, good afternoon. How are you doing today, my friend? The dynamic duo is back in action.
Yeah, the dynamic duo is back in action, and I'm doing good. So yeah, good afternoon to us. Good morning to the US side because we have international audience. So yeah, thrilled to another session of the weekly wrap up. But how are you doing? There are rumors going around that you just sneaked into a conference room private network.
Yes, I'm in my native country here of Sweden at the moment. I'm sitting down in southern Sweden, in Blekinge, in a little town called Karlshamn, where there is a nice little festival going on right now, which is called the Östersjöfestivalen. It was very, very, very long time ago. I was here, and it's really, really exciting to be back here again. So I actually have the views of the festival in front of me here today, which you cannot see at the moment. But I'm looking forward to head out there and maybe have a churros or maybe a donut and maybe ride some amusement rides later. And speaking of amusement rides and amusement park rides, looking at the quarterly reports and numbers flying around and stock prices going up and down today, like a good old roller coaster, and that's what we're gonna kind of focus on today. Obviously, as always, once a quarter, it is a little bit of a Christmas Eve for us here, Nico, when Evolution and Betsson is reporting at the same time, which has happened today. Obviously, Evolution numbers came out this morning. Very, very strong numbers, but the shareholders expected even more. I think that is the long story short here, and we have a special guest with us here today as well, Magnus Andersson, who has been a recurring great guest on a Twitter profile who we will be going through these numbers with today. I know we have a little bit technical problems here in the background, but we're gonna see if we can sort those out when we go live. And then also we have on the cards today to talk about Betsson's quarterly earnings as well, which was released this morning, which was the opposite. Surprisingly strong numbers, and shareholders rewarded them greatly for that as well. So that would be kind of the two main points today, Nico. But we also have a couple of other stories, and I think one of the more interesting stories is the lottery.com scandal here, where the chief revenue officer has been let go here after overstating the cash balance by $30 million. And you know, there's so much numbers flying around, so 30 million doesn't sound that impressive, but keep in mind that the market capitalization of lottery.com is only 50 million, and so overstating your cash balance by 30 million is a pretty big mistake, let's say that. Okay, and in other news as well, we're going to talk about Camelot, the ever ongoing court battle for the UK lottery. Another point here as well. Also, in the session today, Bet365 is taking its most important step towards US expansion. So Bet365, which is the biggest operator in the world, to some extent, at least the brand itself, most likely, has been pretty quiet in the US, and not that many people within the US market actually knows who Bet365 are. But perhaps now we will see some steps in towards that market. And finally, as well, we want to talk about Kindred. Kindred is facing a lot of headwind at the moment, and not a major setback, you could say, but they have committed themselves to this journey towards zero, basically committing themselves that they want to derive 0% of their revenue from potential harmful gambling by 2023. And we can see that this effort is kind of stalling. It's flatlining a little bit, and it's been stuck at 3.3% of the total revenue for 3 out of the 4 last quarters. And so this put in doubt that they will be able to reach this zero target by 2023. So in other words, a lot of discussion points today, a lot of things to talk about. But I think here I'm checking up in the background here. So you know what we'll do here, Nico? We'll see if we can pray to the internet gods and see if the technology is working today. And can we please have Magnus Andersson joining us here in the window today? Fingers crossed. Oh, there we go. Magnus, hello.
Hello, guys.
There we go.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you perfectly. We can see you well as well. It's great to have you here. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you. I have a bit of
Good stuff.
an echo. Yes.
Okay.
I hope
the echo might
work out.
Yeah, the echo may be because you have possibly the stream live in the background somewhere. That could be one of the issues here, but you can have a look at that. But nonetheless, Magnus, let me see if we can jump in straight away here into the first obvious question on the Evolution Q2 22 report. Obviously, numbers came out this morning. Seemingly strong numbers overall in the report, but shareholders obviously are viewing this report as underwhelming. Can you talk a little bit from your perspective how you view this report, and if anything, there was anything surprising to you in this quarterly report?
Basically, I would say that soft, and I think that's what everybody is on about today. But remember that revenues for Evolution go up and down over time after influencing this. I mean, we had the last wrong. Now it's lower. That can have many vacation. There was a very, very large time at the end of the last quarter. All those kinds of things to influence the numbers, but it was a very strong quarter, and as management pointed out, a very nice fulfillment news. And right at the end of the quarter, they have news in the United States and totally in North America. They have 5 studios open, and when you look at that and the growth they had, especially in North America, which has been a question mark for a couple of years. I think people have said, "Oh, North America coming," but since there is so much bureaucracy, you have to go right. You have to have so many permissions. I think it's they were growing now quarter on quarter of, I think, about it in North America. So I don't think that the bit slower growth globally is really big. And the margin also came in just slightly under last quarter, because there is inflationary pressures and wage kinds of things. So I think for us to have followed this company, I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, no one really to Evolution as iGaming investors in Sweden. Everything is weight on. I mean, this golden weight, absolutely perfect all the time. And there is no company really that can. I mean, not all the numbers can be perfect every time, and the company, according to delivering outstanding results.
Yes, absolutely. And Magnus, we do have a little bit difficult time to hear you here. We can hear you in and out a little bit, but I think we can distinguish a little bit what we're talking about here, which is the fact that it's a tough comparative. First of all, Q2 2021, where we were still in lockdowns. Crypto was at its peak, which should not be underestimated, considering that Stake.com is one of the biggest operators in the world, and obviously other crypto operators as well. We did not have the Ukraine-Russia war, and obviously the inflationary pressure is what it is now. And so Evolution was up against a very, very tough comparative quarter, and still they were able to showcase pretty solid growth, high EBITDA margins and a solid all-around quarter. So to me, it seems that Evolution is just showcasing themselves as a pandemic-proof, as a recession-proof organization for the moment being. They are showcasing that they are able to withstand this kind of macroeconomic climate that has hurt the revenues and EBITDA revenues from other companies within the iGaming industries, and certainly the tech sector in general. And so to me, it is still quite surprising, actually, that despite this solid growth, and especially comparatively to the rest of the industry, that shareholders are still reacting negatively. But as you're saying, Magnus, here, this is perhaps a temporary drawback on the market, and perhaps we shouldn't read into the initial reaction of the shareholders too much.
No, but I mean, in today's climate, I get messages here that can you hear me?
We can. It's bumping a little bit in and out, but we can distinguish what you're saying.
Okay, strange this. Well, in today's climate, of course, there is no room for any soft numbers. Of course, get picked on. When we, I mean, if we just think about the company 1 year, I mean, the company was much smaller. It had not all the acquisitions yet. It had lots and lots of that are now completed. We have 15 studios working on another couple of studios, and we have a fantastic, really execution in every way. But still, that's about half what it's peaked at in, I think, May. And I mean, that is the climate nowadays. I think when the market will be valued much more favorably by the market, because I mean, basics not only in iGaming, there's almost no company in the world, if you look at companies that have the numbers that Evolution has now, about that they don't have any debt whatsoever. They have no debt. They have a margin, and they are growing at 35-40%. I mean, there is just like 10 companies in the world, and still they are valued at perhaps 20 earnings for this year. And I mean, I don't think about that too much, because we have since now. I mean, just like I mean, Microsoft, Google, whatever. I mean, all those fantastic companies, they have valued very drastically by the market, and that's just.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, so essentially, is the macro climate is essentially what it is, and that's perhaps why we are not seeing Evolution obviously gaining any significant ground on the public markets at the moment. I was thinking another important point that I picked up from the quarterly report today was the fact that the share of Evolution's revenue is increasing from the regulated segment. And I'm going to see if I can bring this pop up here. So essentially, the share of regulated market revenue increased from the last quarter from 40% to 43%. And this is presumably due to the fact of the regulated Ontario market would be a pretty good guess to have here. And I'm going to show another chart as well, which was
North America.
Yes, North America.
Yeah, I mean, we have had very strong growth in Asia. That was a bit softer now, and growth in North America, which is of course 100% regulated.
Absolutely, and as we can see here, Ali Gundus of Twitter, he published an interesting growth here, which is to kind of put this point in stone, which he asked the question then, what is the reason for the drift towards regulated growth? And obviously North America with the United States and Canada replaced Asia as the growth engine for the first time this quarter, meaning that the North American market was the market that grew revenue the most this quarter. And obviously, as we can see here from this graph, is the fact that Europe is actually on the decline at the moment. And something that actually surprised me a bit is that it's only declined this slightly, considering all the headwinds at the moment. And just the fact, I mean, as we all know, a lot of people are traveling at the moment and taking vacation. In comparison to last year, in this time there was still COVID lockdowns in place, and people were still very reluctant to travel. The vaccine had just been rolled out and so on, and that was a little bit speculation internally here as well. Was like how big of an effect would this have on especially the European segment in this quarter? And as we can see here, obviously there has been a little bit of a drawback in Europe, but overall. It is quite limited, so to say. What's your expectation now going forward, Magnus? What is next for Evolution, in your opinion?
Well, basically they are investing very, very heavily now. As we, this is always about a bit of an issue there, because so many costs they have to take up front when hiring people, training people. And I'm just stunned at the numbers they are talking, they are hiring, and how much they are planning to hire, especially in North America. An increase there. I mean, I think because basically it's have been growing on par with revenues, and that is not the business. Particularly since you can have so many players on each table, the business is on the cost, which increases margins over time. So I think this, when you look at the numbers a little bit closer, especially for personnel, cost per full-time employee is very, very stable. That is very, very promising, because as I've heard in most companies, is that it's more expensive to grow in North America, and for the staff, I mean, it's Evolution has been finding new places to put up studios. They started in Riga. I mean, all those kinds of people, places where people well educated and know English well, but the wages aren't. Have been very, very good at controlling the wage cost, the complete package there for personnel costs. And I think that's very, very keeping. I mean, of course, they will feel some pressure on wages, but I think they are handling this very, very well. And also with which they are growing with studios. I think basically when they go into South America, they will a very, very global company ready to the increasing demand all over the globe. And I think that is spectacular. I mean, 15 studios today is North America. It's I think very, very promising. But I mean, when it comes, as I said, when it comes to this revenue, there people are on vacation. It's very, very hot and it's warm and it's nice beach. Then it comes autumn and people go back fun playing, and then it comes Christmas and people are sitting there playing a lot, and those things that they will just continue to fluctuate. Is that they have good cost control and that they are growing and I see no issues. I think they are they're doing a very good job there. There is high demand for live casino continued. I mean, that is also something we should touch on. They've have been very successful, especially the Extreme here, which has lots and lots of players from the start. And I think basis for Evolution's future, if they can continue and these top titles like they do now, I mean, this I think is very promising for the second half of this year, because I mean, some people may think there are some temporary thing that you release like Extreme Lightning, like when Disney releases a movie and then slowly it fades. A year later, you just have some little new works. Basically, when they have popular releases, they just continue up. A game like Mega Ball that came, I think, 2 years, a little bit more, which with the player numbers just growing and growing. And so, I mean, as long as Evolution is as successful in new titles and churning out news all the time and have the kind of new players they are getting, I think it's a very roller coaster, but it's a very nice roller coaster over time.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and it will be interesting, definitely, to follow Evolution here as we move forward into Q3, and also to see how the acquisition of No Limit City will turn out here as they complete this as well. Magnus, thank you so much for joining us today, albeit a little bit sound issues here, but hopefully for the audience it was possible to decipher most of it. Still, this is what happens when we are live sometimes. It's hard to control the technology, but still, nonetheless, Magnus, it's always really appreciated that you come on to these things on last minute notice, and we wish that we have you back here next time as well. So okay. Thank you so much, Magnus.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye, Magnus.
All right, Nico, and what's your thoughts here on the quarterly report, Nico, of Evolution? Like, what if you summarize what Magnus said and what you saw as well in the report, what would you make of it?
So first of all, you just need to kind of literally compare the great numbers which they actually filed to the peer group. And if you just compare an EBITDA margin, if I'm not mistaken, it's roughly 70%, 69.4, 68.4% EBITDA margin. They have a profit margin which is roughly around 36, 35%. And if you just take a look, on how big companies, tech companies like the Googles, the Amazons, the Microsofts actually perform, they don't report these kind of numbers, right? And then if you just take the numbers and put it into perspective at the world's greatest big tech companies, then you just realize how outstanding these numbers actually are. Which Evolution actually reports, and to be honest, they are just starting. If we just take a look at how the stock price actually has been for the last couple of years, I think the rise actually started like 4 years ago, and I'm pretty sure that this
the rise has been it's been a rise of Evolution since the IPO. Actually, it's with some flat line in between, but it's been continued exponential growth in Evolution since till Q2 last year. It's actually where the stock flattened, and obviously due to macro climate more than anything, it kind of came down a bit. But we've seen the rise of Evo since obviously the start. And just a funny story here, Nico, in the midst of everything is a number of years back, obviously Evolution was listed on the Swedish stock exchange and pretty unknown to foreign investors. And this caused essentially the fact that a lot of Swedish investors were invested early in Evolution. And once the international investors found Evo and we saw an even greater uptick on the stock market, this caused obviously an enormous amount of wealth being created amongst the Swedish investors. And Todd Haushalter, the CPO, he told me a funny story once where he went to Sweden and he was at a restaurant eating. Someone came up to him and tapped him on his shoulder, and he turned around and he wasn't sure what to expect, and this guy came up to him and said and told him that sorry Todd, I don't want to disturb you too much, but I just wanted to tell you thank you, because you have created more millionaires in Sweden than the government will ever be able to produce, essentially. And it was true at that time. Obviously now in the last year, maybe the story has not been the same, of course, but it still is the case, of course, that Evo has generated a lot of wealth here in Sweden. And I wanted to just kind of jump over as well to some other interesting statistics here from the quarterly report. And here is another quite interesting chart as well, which shows the revenue split between the different markets in Europe as well as in the world as well. And as we can see here as well, it's quite interesting because Ali Gundus as well. Thank you, Ali, for providing really cool data. He also includes the split between regulated and not regulated, and also the growth on the RNG sector as well. And as we can see here, to a large extent, Europe has flattened its revenue, so to say, from now on. We can see in the last 5 or 6 quarters, really, that the revenue has been somewhat flat, so to say, whereas obviously the growth is coming from predominantly Asia and from North America now, especially in the last quarter. But also, again, pointing out this fact that the revenue from regulated sector has grown here as well, which is a positive thing as well for us. I want to see if we can, if we have something else. Then obviously, kind of the overall EBITDA margin and operating revenues. It's a continuation, of this extremely strong tailwinds that Evolution is operating under, still able to contain and structure a 70% EBITDA margin. It is absolutely incredible considering the macroeconomic factors here, as we talked about before. There's quite a lot of things that we're speaking against the industry right now in comparison to the quarter last year. Again, lockdowns was in effect last year. Cryptocurrencies were very strong a year back, whereas obviously cryptos has kind of crashed in this quarter. We did not have the Russia-Ukraine war, and obviously the inflation was not an issue a year ago. And still, Evolution, despite all of these macro factors, are able to continue this steady growth, both in terms of EBITDA, operating revenues, and EBITDA margin. And so Evo is proving themselves to be very strong on that front. So yes, really positive, Nico. And I suppose we have another half hour here. Shall we? Like always, we talk about how we never have time to finish all the subjects here. What do you say? Shall we jump over to the Betsson quarterly report here quick as well?
Yeah.
And we can talk about that too, yes. So essentially, I'm going to bring it up here. The Betsson quarterly report is, on the contrary to Evolution, was by all accounts, a very strong report from Betsson, where they broke an all-time high in revenues for this quarter. Which is incredible, again, talking about the macroeconomic climates here. And the reason for this increase in revenue is mostly due to the fact that they are increasing revenues in the focused emerging market in Latin America. And we can now see a revenue split here between the different markets. And we can see that Latin America is almost as big as the Nordics is at the moment, now with 24.5% in revenue derived to Betsson from this quarter. Whereas the kind of Eastern Europe, Asia, Central Asia, CEECA is still the largest segment here, which also published quite significant revenue growth. So the story here is essentially that Betsson have chosen a strategy which is very focused on pre-regulated emerging markets. And this is in contrary to what Kindred is doing, which is focusing on only regulated markets. So they are going strong in the UK, Nordics, and obviously Kindred's hope is to establish themselves in North America as their key emerging markets. Whereas Betsson chose not to focus on North America, but rather to focus on Latin America. And the fruits of their labor is now showing effect here, and especially in this quarter. It's just an incredible quarterly report that Betsson has been able to achieve here, despite the fact that they have decreased slightly in EBITDA from last quarter. They are still able to break an all-time high in revenue. And let me see what the share price is still up 10% today on the markets. And this is also, I think, I cannot say for certain, but I think that Betsson is the only operator that even before this quarterly report was actually up on the markets this year. So if you go back from like 1st of January, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think I can find any. If we take away Leo Vegas, obviously, which was just acquired by MGM, I'm pretty sure Betsson is the only operator that has actually been able to perform well and are in the green on the stock market since the 1st of January. And so they have a lot of expectations on them, and obviously they were able to produce a really good quarterly report, even despite this recent uptick in share price during this year. And so by all accounts, I think Pontus and his crew over at Betsson has really found themselves in their strategy now, where a lot of people question them. If we go back a year's time, for example, when Pontus Lindvall was let go by the board because they didn't believe that Pontus was the man to lead Betsson into the kind of modern strategy of an iGaming company where they needed perhaps a different skill set. But Pontus had definitely shown that he is the man for the job, and he was obviously reinstated here as the CEO of Betsson AB after this tumultuous period of last year where the board let him go, and then the shareholders rebelled and reinstated him, and then instead they let go of the chairman of the board, Patrik Svensk. And now it is beyond any reasonable doubt, in my opinion, that Betsson has really landed and really found themselves in the strategy for the coming years here. They have a solid foundation in South America. They have solid partnerships on the sports side, particularly, and they are showing a very sustainable way to grow revenue in the company, despite all the headwinds that we are seeing in the industry from North American perspective, from European perspective, and so on. So just an overall very impressive quarterly report, in my opinion. What's your thoughts here, Nico?
No, there's nothing more to add. But what you can just see, it's the EBITDA margin is quite on the evolution level. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 69.3%, or what did you just show?
So the EBITDA margin is 27%.
Okay.
Betsson.
Yeah. So it's just still outstanding, to be honest. But this just showcases how outstanding the EBITDA margin of Evolution actually is, right? We have a perfectly performing company with the Betsson Group, and then you just realize how outstanding a 70% EBITDA margin actually is.
Absolutely. No, this is absolutely true. And so yeah, this is kind of the story of Betsson. Then I suppose is a very solid growth in emerging markets, and that is what you want to see if you are an investor in the iGaming industry. So I would say 2 thumbs ups on Betsson quarterly report, and
4
I love to
thumbs
see.
up.
Yeah, I love to see the fact that Pontus and the guys at Betsson, they never do anything like super controversial. They never try to reinvent the wheel, but rather what they try to do is they just push and push and push, and they generate shareholder value. So congratulations to the Betsson shareholders over the last year. There's a lot of people who are jealous on you, I think. So Nico, jumping over, these are the 2 quarterly reports that we saw today. Jumping over to next topic, which is a pretty big scandal here of another publicly traded iGaming company, which is Lottery.com, where we just saw the CRO Matthew Clemenson being let go here after the business had revealed to had overstated its cash balance by $30 million. And let me just point out here that, and I'm going to put up this graph, let's just point out the market cap of Lottery.com recently is 50 million. And so overstating the balance sheet by $30 million in cash has obviously a significant impact on the overall business and how it's being perceived by shareholders. And just to take up kind of how the markets reacted to this, we've seen a downturn of about 16.5% on the markets here in this week. But let me show you a lot more of a sad graph, if you will, which is if we zoom out and we look at the last year, where we can see that the share price from its peak of Lottery.com has decreased by 95%. 95%. So at its peak, the market capitalization was actually closer to 1 billion, and it's now being cut down to about $40 million here after the big scandal and big mess here that has taken place within Lottery.com. What's your take here, Nico, and can you expand on this story a bit?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, by beginning of last year, they actually announced that they are planning to go public on the Nasdaq. So even the bigger stage where Sportradar is listed, for instance. And there's already always said, the higher the rise, the sharper the knives. And if you just take into account that Matthew Clemson, the chief revenue officer, actually, there's always in the end one person actually needs to let go. And if you just it's the overstated available unrestricted cash balance. So cash which is in the bank, account, and you can directly use. And if you kind of miscalculate this by $30 million or 60% of your market capitalization, this just reminds me a little bit of the story of Wirecard, where they out of a sudden kind of missed 45-50% of their also kind of unrestricted cash balance, which should have been in a bank account somewhere in Asia. And then out of a sudden, it turned out that this money doesn't exist. And out of a sudden, one of the biggest scandal in German stock exchange history actually started. Fingers crossed, they will be able to actually turn the ship around and gain way more momentum, and hopefully market capitalization will go back to the former heights. But
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
see.
No, it's casting doubt actually. What this reminds me of is, I think back. I'm a big fan of The Office, the US version, by the way, not the UK version. I'm sorry, anyone who thinks the UK version is better than the US Office is not a trustable person. Let's leave it at that. But in the Office, the series, at the end of the series. There's the accountant. His name is Kevin, and Kevin is like his character is a little bit slow, like he's not so intelligent or whatever, and he gets fired basically from the office. And afterwards, they find all these discrepancies in the balance sheets at the office, and and they find out that anytime that Kevin has not been able to understand the mathematics in the balance sheet and the numbers doesn't work out, he just put a donut, and that's his magic number, and then everything works out. and I get the feeling here that this is a little bit what has been going on within lottery.com. That it's kind of like some donuts here and there in the balance sheet, and then okay, it's just a zero sum. It works out. It's fine. And the resignation here of Matthew Clemenson, I think, as a final point here, it follows the termination of the former CFO Ryan Dickinson. Surprise, surprise with that name. So basically, this has been an ongoing issue within lottery.com, obviously, with Ryan Dickinson being let go first, and then obviously Matthew Clemenson taken over, and then also being terminated here from the company. So I suppose within lottery.com there is, not surprisingly enough, a lot of turmoil at the moment in order to get the finances back on track here. So it will be interesting to see, and I'm sure it's not the final word that we have of this story. Nico.
Yeah, and what we can already state is like Harry Alival, who was a long time C-level executive at AIG and Barclays. And he served as an advisor already to lottery.com. He will take over the interim CFO role as of now. So they already replaced the former interim CFO of Matthew Clemenson already. And fingers crossed they will, as said, turn the ship around.
Absolutely. Nico, you had a story here as well on the ongoing court battle for the UK lottery, and you mentioned it quickly. I think it's a bit of a quick story, but still, Camelot actually had a bit of a winner here, and I suppose for context here, Camelot used to run the UK National Lottery, but this has now been taken over by Alwyn, and as a result of this, Camelot is now suing in order to regain the rights to host the UK National Lottery. And then what's the latest movement here on this story?
So first of all, they still run the operations, right? And the overall lawsuit is just about handing over the business. If I'm not mistaken, it will happen in Q1 next year, where actually Alwyn, run by a Czech billionaire, will be able to actually run and operate the business. As of now, there's a court ruling that from Thursday, so it's just from literally just from today, they have won the right to actually appeal against the decision of the High Court, which was made by 29th of June, where the UK Gambling Commission, actually had a decision or filed for a decision made by the High Court that they will be able to hand over the business to Alwyn. And this has been fought by Camelot, which now puts the overall, the overall fun, let's call it the overall fun in the UK with the golden nugget of the lottery business, into a lawsuit once again, which actually started by mid of February, when Camelot, Alwyn, and Sisal had been in the run for actually gaining the first position or to run the UK lottery. And as soon as the rumors spread around by mid of March that Alwyn might be the winning bid, we already stated that this will end up in a lawsuit, as each and every company already lined up their lawyers, their legal teams to actually fight the decision, who or however the decision would have been made. Then the decision had been made that Allwyn will be granted the UK lottery business. And as we can see, as of now, nearly 5 months later, it starts to become a quite unpleasant lawsuit and legal game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I suppose what Camelot is intending here is to stall this process in order to keep the lottery perhaps a bit longer than Q1 of next year. But let's see how it goes there. This is also not the last we hear of this story, that is for sure. In other news, Bet365, which you could potentially say is the biggest operator in the world, if you take them on a brand-to-brand basis, has been pretty quiet in the US market. Not that many people know about them. Not that many gamblers and punters are aware about Bet365. And for example, in New Jersey, where they are live, they are not even in the top 10. They are not even in the top 15. They are very incognito in the state where they are live in New Jersey, and they have also acquired a license in Colorado, but they have yet to go live. And they tried to apply for a license in New York, didn't get it, and it's been quiet. We haven't really understood exactly the strategy and the means here for Bet365 in the United States. And I suppose the big issue for Bet365 is that they perhaps have underestimated the Americans. How much Americans value brand equity. So the Americans value the fact that they recognize the brand and that it's a brand that they can trust, so to say. So brands like FanDuel, like DraftKings, have obviously built brand equity throughout the years, even before sports betting and online gambling was launched through their fantasy sports operations. And we had our editor on the North American market here, Ryan Butler, writing a really interesting article here, Nico, about the next steps here at Bet365, and that they are now perhaps looking at starting to compete seriously in the American market. Can you give a little bit more context to this article?
Yeah, so first of all, they are applying for a license in Ohio, and as you already mentioned, they are live in the considered the second largest iGaming market or sports betting market, with being running in New Jersey. And besides, some adverts around the Yankee Stadium, as you already mentioned, they keep quite a low profile all over the US, having a license in Colorado, but not yet being live in Colorado. Maybe their risk appetite has been stimulated a little bit as soon as Ontario, so the Canadian side of sports betting, went live. And they, as of now, we didn't see any numbers coming in from Colorado. So literally, we don't know, because this is the first market where they have been under the first market entrance, and had been toe-to-toe with the heavyweights like the FanDuels, the Caesars, the BetMGMs, you name them. And I'm pretty sure that they are seeing decent revenues, and that's why they specifically go for the license in Ohio as well. And as you mentioned, they are considered as the biggest online sports betting operator with roughly 36 million customers all over the world, which actually makes them the biggest online sports betting company in the world.
Wow. That's amazing. And they are just about to open an office in Malta, so they will be even bigger than a big office they've been building for the last couple of years here. So it'll be interesting to see. Last story here, Nico, of today, which is we're going to zoom in on Kindred here. We spoke about Betsson obviously doing well here on the stock markets and choosing the right strategy. Seemingly, Kindred is facing a lot of headwinds from a lot of directions. For context here, about a year and a half ago, Kindred committed themselves to this journey to zero, which is an ESG initiative where basically Kindred wants to showcase that they can be a sustainable and kind of positive gambling operation without causing any harm from harmful gambling. We know obviously that is an issue within the industry, and Kindred chose to tackle this issue head on by committing themselves to eliminate revenue from hold-from gambling by 2023. Now, since then, they have been transparent and publishing the amount of revenue that have been derived from harmful gambling. Now, it's important to remember here that it is Kindred who are setting these parameters. It is Kindred who have built this proprietary system to detect and prevent the revenue being generated from harmful gambling. And so it is not a black and white definition what is revenue from harmful gambling or not. This is a definition that Kindred have chosen, right? But nonetheless, they have been transparent with their systems and their definitions. But unfortunately, they haven't exactly been able to decrease the revenue here, quote unquote. And we're going to show here the last 4 quarters from our article here at iGaming Next, where in Q3 2021, the revenue from harmful gambling was at 3.3%. Next quarter went up to 4%, then down to 3.3%, and Q2 is also again publishing 3.3% here. So seemingly, Kindred has struggled by getting anywhere closer to this journey to zero by 2023. And I suppose Kindred has been transparent in the very beginning as well, and they have been saying that this is not a very easy journey. It's the first time anyone attempts this, and they have to be able to trust that there are improvements in AI technology in order to detect and prevent the potential harmful gambling, and also importantly, without producing any false positives. So in other words, you as a customer, if I am actually gambling sustainably, I don't want to be told to stop gambling by mistake. You know, this is also a very important part of the customer experience, of course. So being able to eliminate harmful gambling without these false positives is also a prerequisite for a successful model here, of course. But so far, it's in a little bit of doubt if Kindred is actually going to get closer to this target, and because they have been very bold in announcing this target and reporting on these numbers, they should to some extent also be judged for how the efforts are going, so to say. So it's not looking super positive now, Nico. But what do you make of this?
So first of all, if you could just showcase or show once again the numbers which you have shown, because if we just take into account within the numbers of Q4 2021, they had a kind of the revenues which are linked to coming from probably high risk players has been 4% reported for Q4 2021. If we just take into account that within the Q4 of 2021, they had to shut down their business in the Netherlands by, if I'm not mistaken, October 2021. So Q4 2021 are the numbers, reported numbers without the Netherlands. And there you can just see, okay, increasing numbers, but they literally got back on track now with the Q1 numbers to 3.3%, Q2 numbers also 3.3%, although, and always keep in mind, they just restarted their business in the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 weeks ago, had some issues with their bonus offerings, which in the end, each and every operator had been facing as well. When initially starting, I'm pretty sure the KSA, the authority in the Netherlands, could give us some insights why specifically each and every restarting operator is facing an issue when linking their database to the kind of databases of the KSA. So it will be interesting to see the Q3 numbers of 2022 when the restarted business in the Netherlands will kick in as well. And I'm pretty sure they will report a number closely to 2.6, 2.7%. And then you literally just see that they have a steady decrease of the number as well. And what we also always need to keep in mind that they didn't change the kind of maths behind calculating these numbers. It would have been easy if they would go out there like, okay, we just realized that the mathematics or the maths, how we actually calculated the percentage coming from harmful gambling was just wrong, and out of a sudden they're like, okay, we hit the target. It's 0.5%. Now it's 0.0%, and we can, clap our own shoulders, which they actually don't do. So there you can just see that they're fully committed to actually hit the target, and I'm pretty sure that they're just doing their very, very best to showcase their own credo. And as said, the Q3 numbers for 2022, where the Dutch market will be fully in once again, I'm pretty sure we will just see an increase or decrease to 2.6, 2.7%.
The time is 3:59 CET. We have 30 seconds to spare. This has been an absolutely brilliant session. Once again, Nico, thank you for summarizing the status here of Kindred, and the hope is not lost, in other words. Interesting session today, of course, with quarterly reports coming out. I was really nervous for the quarterly reports. I actually expected the evolution report to be a lot worse considering the macro climate. And so still positive on that front, and happy that Evo is surpassing at least my expectations. But Nico, it is 4 p.m. The sun is out, the sun is shining, water is warm. What do you say? Shall we go down and have a little pina colada today on the beach? It's time. I think.
Yeah, it's time. It's time. It's way beyond time. It's way beyond time.
Way beyond time. Thank you so much, my friend. It's been a great pleasure. And also thank you to Magnus for chiming in here today. Magnus Andersson, short notice, albeit apologies for the technical issues here, but hopefully we were able to decipher at least part of what Magnus contributed with today. It's always interesting to have him here. Also, just a final thank you to our headline sponsor of the iGaming Next weekly news, which is Betsson, a fantastic game provider. Who is doing really well at the moment, and also to the payment provider Simpler for supporting these efforts and making sure that we can have this session each week, and we can head down to the Pina Colada efforts here afterwards. So thank you so much. Thank you, Nico, and we will see you here next week again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.